has gotten. However, we've gotten screwed over while the banks have gotten bailed out. While $1.7 trillion has gone to support banks, has gone to support Wall Street, off the taxpayers' dime. Student loans that are all-time high. In fact, there's more student loan debt, there's more student loan default happening in Florida than any other state in the union. However, students don't get bailed out. Wall Street does. Working people do not get bailed out. Wall Street does. But apparently, according to the 1%, according to the media that the 1% owns, we are the lazy ones. Students, you are the lazy ones. You are the apathetic ones. You are the ones without any passion. And you are the reason why this country is in the economic shortfall that is in now. However, students, we should actively reject that because we are the future of this nation, and this nation will basically go how we take it. And it is up to us. It is up to students at this university. It is up to students in America to basically see as though their family is taken care of, their future is secure, and that their future will not be continually corrupted as Wall Street has corrupted this country and has sent us to the economic shortfall that they have sent us. So, if anybody wants to stand on the soapbox, or the soap rock, as I call it, hop on board.
Yeah.
Woo! Yeah! Thank you, Michael.
I have to make this incredibly brief because I have to go to class, as I'm sure a lot of you do. But today there's actually a general strike being called in the city of Oakland, in California, in response to the police crackdown, unlike the crackdown we've ever seen in our lives. In fact, they were using live tear gas and rubber bullets on American citizens who were peacefully assembled on public property in Oakland, California. So today I stand here in solidarity with everyone who is walking out on strike in Oakland. This is a movement that we had to take back. This used to be commonplace in the United States. The last general strike that ever happened here was in 1946. So just to give you an idea of how depoliticized this and how it we become, we have to start taking direct action against the 1%, which is accumulating our wealth, which is stealing our future, stealing our retirement funds, and are not providing for the rest of us. That's all I have to say.
I just wanted to share what I knew about the Scott Olsen thing in case anybody doesn't know. I just wanted to share what I know about the Scott Olsen thing in case anybody isn't informed. We keep talking that he was a victim of police crackdown. He was actually shot almost point blank in the head with a rubber bullet. Now these aren't just rubber bullets. These are metal things encased in rubber. They're capable of doing a lot of damage, and in his case, caused traumatic brain injury. He's still in critical. No, I don't know if he's still in critical condition. He was for at least a week, and so this is in solidarity with him. I know we're also having a vigil. Where are we still today?
Vigil today at Lake Ella.
At Lake Ella. 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, Lake Ella. We're
Let's get there early.
A candle-lit vigil for Scott Olsen. He was a two-time Iraq war vet. He was defending our country and came back to exercise his right to free speech. The people who were there to help him, to bring him away after he was shot in the head by the police, were also, they threw a tear gas canister at them, or a flashbang, that's what it was.
Flash grenade.
Whatever. Anyway, these people who were trying to help him were attacked. This isn't something you would see in a war zone. It's against military protocol, at least. You don't attack medics. You don't attack people. These should have been immune from attack. These were citizens trying to help an injured man who were similarly attacked by the Oakland police. So there's that too.
As well, but I'm also here because I'm pissed off. My voice has been drowned out by millions of dollars in corporate money, and I can no longer get my congressmen to do what I think is correct, what we all think is correct. It's so crazy to demand your voice back. I don't understand those that say we are weak. We don't look for work. There is no work. They want you to look for something that doesn't exist. They're hoping to capture your mind. It's not true. Fight for what's yours, your voice. That's the one thing you're promised. It's yours. Keep it.
I'll go up and speak.
Yeah.
All right, so there are a lot of statistics that kind of support some of the things we're saying, that the people around here, or in America, I should say, like, we've kind of been, I don't want to say brainwashed. I don't like to think they're brainwashed, but if you go back and look at your lives, you'll see some of the things you've been told aren't necessarily true. There are a lot of people, when we're living in America, we're talking about the American dream. That's what we're brought on. And I think the American dream is still very beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, but what we need to do is look around and see if the American dream is still possible. There's a lot of information out there. I don't want you to be listening to people's anecdotes, which is very good. You know, well, if you can be encouraged by that, that's great. But I want you to go and look at the statistics. What is the social mobility in America? How many people break out of their class and go to the class above them or are socially mobile? It's ridiculously low. You can find this stuff. You can find it on the internet, reliable sources, all these sort of things. But I just want you to think about it going forward. We're not against the American dream. We're against the idea that the American dream has been sold to us, and it's a lie. So I just want to encourage everybody to go find these statistics, go look up things on your own, and spread the word yourself.
What are you doing?
What I know pisses me off, the inequality in our country. That the fact that a country like Cuba, who is significantly poorer than us, has better health care than we do in the U.S. because they have a smaller gap of inequality in their country. That is ridiculous that a CEO is making 475 times more than the average American citizen, when in other, just as progressive nations, they're only making like 18, which is significant, but I mean 475 times the average person. That is something that we cannot ignore, and that is something that is so unequal. That makes me happy.
Alright, well, you might be wondering, what does women's rights have anything to do with what we're talking about? I'll tell you what it has to do with it. Everything. Yes, because since our government doesn't want to, raise taxes or do what needs to actually be done to help the American people, we think that by cutting certain spending, that'll make things better. Hey, why don't we cut funding to Planned Parenthood? That'll be a great idea. It's not like people rely on their health care or get pap smears or STD testing or anything that's really important to their health at Planned Parenthood. I mean, that's a wonderful idea. Actually, it's a really horrible idea. Why are we continuously cutting social programs that help women and people with uteruses and just people in general, because men also can get certain health care at Planned Parenthood too? So why are we diverting our attention from the people that we should be going after and instead going after the people and groups that need help? Why do we continuously try to pass anti-choice legislation when people need jobs? We don't need less choice. We need more jobs. So I am so sick and fucking tired of my rights being infringed upon because I have a uterus. And
Go for it.
I am. Thank you. Yeah. Solidarity. All right. That's just my spiel.
We need student loan reform. There is legislation being debated right now to change our current flawed system from where your student loan payment starts 6 months after graduation, regardless if you have a job or not, to change it to a more civilized system where they can only charge 10% of your discretionary income, and they're forgiven after 20 years of payments, which makes a whole lot more sense. So you really need to make your voice heard, go bang down your congressman's door, and try and get this passed. And as far as what's taking priority over this, there was a debate in Congress today to ensure that In God We Trust remains our national motto, which is obviously so much more important.
Hey.
So there's problems, right? Is that the idea? Yeah. People are standing around kind of making their voices heard for some reason. There's some reason why something's happening. And I guess the general idea is, oh, there's problems.
and so there's complaints. But it's not just that there are problems. There are solutions that every single day are being tossed aside. I mean, people talk about raising taxes, but that shouldn't even be step one. I mean, there are things that drastically need funding. Step one should be collecting taxes owed to the state, collecting taxes owed to the nation. The state of Florida is a tax haven. And what that means is that laws have been passed that allow for certain businesses to come here specifically so that they can get away with paying absolutely no tax whatsoever on all of the billions of dollars that they make in profit off the backs of citizens of Florida and citizens of the United States. So companies specifically relocate to Florida because their tax code is so riddled with loopholes that all they have to do is pay a couple lawyers to ensure that they don't have to pay any kind of taxes. They can make profit off of everyone. They can do it to the detriment of the environment. They can do it to the detriment of the social systems that sustain these people that make their money for them. And they can get away without paying back anything. And it's disgusting. So it's not just that we want some kind of solution to emerge. There exist solutions that can be implemented today. And our legislators are refusing every single day to collect money that could stop education cuts, dead. That could stop cuts to social programs, dead. And it's disgusting. And it's completely inexcusable. And there is actually no excuse. It's a joke. It's a joke. The excuse given is an absurd one, based on faulty premises that have been disproven for decades. That somehow, if we give people the ability to acquire power, there is some kind of incentive for them to share it with people that they're exploiting. It's a little bit absurd. And I don't think that that's unobvious somehow. But that's why we're out here to talk about things. So, if you feel differently, I'd love to hear why.
Some things that you guys are saying I agree with, but with the student loans, no one tells us we have to take a student loan. So to say after 20 years you're forgiven of your responsibility, I see it may work out in the end, but it doesn't teach you a fundamental lesson of repaying your dues. You don't have to take that loan. If you don't like the terms of repaying it after 6 months, don't take it. I have student loans. I fully intend to pay them back. I went into it with my eyes open, and it's my responsibility. That's my answer.
While I agree that repaying student loans is a responsibility of ours, and that we know going into the loans that we should, it's the ethical thing to do. You borrow money, you pay it back. At the same time, I don't feel like we really have options with our education when it comes to loans. I feel like a lot of us are trapped into this idea that in order to advance in our society, in order to get a well-paying job, well, yes, we need a degree. In order to get that degree, we're probably going to have to incur some debt. So it kind of seems like there's already an inequality there. While I think that we do need to pay back our loans, and I don't think that we should be, just flat forgiven for them, I think it needs to be looked at how much debt we're taking on, how much tuition is rising, the terms of that debt, I don't think is entirely fair to us. We feel we need to, and in many cases we do need to, in order to live a productive life, to get a job above the service industry, to live this American dream, we need an education. We need that debt too. It's not like the majority of us are able to go to school without incurring debt. It's not like you talk about having a choice about taking on debt. I don't feel like we necessarily do. We kind of need an education to participate in this society. You disagree?
I have personally made $65,000 a year at a blue-collar job.
Absolutely.
I had a high school degree. It was a little bit of luck. I'm not going to say we're all going to get that type of money with a high school degree. There's a little bit of luck involved, but if you want to work hard, there is some opportunity out there, so there is always a choice.
There's not a lot of opportunity out there. Unemployment for our age is 20, 25%, and of that, something like 30% are underemployed, so they're still not even making the wages that their education kind of promised them. So
false assumption that everyone is able to everyone's capable of earning a degree.
Intuition is very significant.
And your man. And the man.
I'm talking about corruption. Alright, The Rock. Alright, well, there's a one problem with the loans is that interest rates are I need to organize my thoughts first. The loans are the only call it student loans. This happened in I think in the 80s when we changed the laws. The student loans are the only loans that you can never file Chapter 11 and get rid of your loans. And no matter what, these loans will follow you for the rest of your life. A normal loan will you don't have to pay back your loans if you go into bankruptcy. And this happened recently. It's a new law that has passed, and that's a problem. That's a problem. The main problem with student loans is that the banks have gone in bed with the politicians, and they pass laws to make these loans unfair, and that it's caused an industry where colleges can now they're required to give out loans to everyone, and there's zero risk for the banks because the defaulted loans are paid by taxpayer dollars to the banks. So the banks have zero risk loans to students, so they have an incentive to give loans to people who can never repay them, because the government will repay the loans for the student, while the student is still never has the loan lifted. They always have the debt, no matter what. And this is one problem. And now there's a industry of fake majors that have no that haven't existed. A bunch of new majors that are really that can never get you a job. There's like in that international affairs and all those majors. They're not real majors. They made them up recently.
No, because I had an international job after I got my degree. So
I mean, there's certain majors that were created recently that are a lot easier.
It's supposed to be like a diplomatic ship or whatever. My brain is so off right now, but you're basically you are trained to be an investor or a diplomat.
We get your point, though. That the banks are making loans available to people that don't need to be getting loans, which is something we just saw happen in 2008 when that collapsed. And they're not expected to have no loss, but they're subsidizing loss and accepting the gain. That's the main problem with the loans. And
To his point,
one more way it's happening.
Yes, exactly. To his point, like students nationwide, I believe, are part of an industry called the educational industrial complex. And how that is how, like you were saying, like these like corrupt banks buy off these politicians, these corrupt politicians, and pass this legislation that guarantees these student loans that students cannot really pay back, but have to take out because the rate of tuition, like the rate of scholarships being cut, is going up while scholarships are going down. Less Pell Grant, less Bright Future scholarships. So many people came to FSU on Bright Futures. That's been cut substantially and will keep getting cut. So we are part of something called the educational industrial complex, where education is basically a good, but your degrees are getting devalued because of this corporate cronyism, this like governmental like crap that's basically hurting students, hurting the value of our degrees, like devaluing our degrees, making college into basically like a service line, like a assembly line, like getting off these products. And you look around us, you have like all these businesses that are profiting off the students. Aramark, like owns Starbucks, they own all these restaurants and all this stuff. How much do they give back to the student body, which they profit off of? But this one company owns everybody. However, they're like workers are paid shit salaries. They're like let go every couple weeks. They have no worker rights. So that's how they basically maintain profit. Like, wasn't it like Aramark made record profits or something last year? However, they Like,
their sales went down, but their profits went up.
yeah, how do your
last
sales
quarter.
go down if your profits go up? It means you're screwing over somebody. And that's who the error market is screwing over. They're screwing over students, and they're screwing over basically our school. And I think as though like we are part of this process, and students should realize that since they are a part of this process and they have a voice, they should make their voice heard and be against it. You know, fight back against 1% like Aramark, who profits off of you. Look at all of you like expensive textbooks, these publication companies. You know, like look at like all these bookstores that charge exorbitant amounts for books. You know, like this is ridiculous, and students should be pissed off because like our generation now has an opportunity to change the total direction of this country, and we can go either forward or we can go like stay in the rut, like drown in the mud, and basically like see the end to the like American dream that Scott Olsen fought for. You know, like this is our American dream. You know, like our American dream is what we make it. However, individually it won't happen. As a society, as a collection of students, as people united, that is the only way we can secure the idea of an American dream where everybody in America has a future. Our families have a future, and our children have a future.
Alright, so bringing it back to Occupy Oakland, for those of you that don't know, police shot rubber bullets at them, they threw tear gas canisters at them, and Scott Olsen was hospitalized as a result. He had a serious head injury and had to be put into a medically induced coma because of the police. Now, what if somebody came in here and bashed our heads in because we were talking all this shit? Our voice is under attack. That's the problem here. But there is strength and weakness. The police are scared. People are scared because we have a voice and we're not backing down. Now we need to use that and come together. You can say your point of view, but try and see where we're coming from here. Things are fucked up. Say something about it. Somebody get up here and say something. And come out to the vigil tonight at 8 p.m. at Lake Ella.
I just thought I'd come back up here because it just dawned on me. Governor Rick Scott thinks social science degrees aren't really important. And that just really bothers the hell out of me since I'm a philosophy major. And the one realization I have is once I graduate with $100,000 in loans, where the hell am I going to find work?
Again, going off that point, Rick Scott said that Florida doesn't need any more anthropologists. What the fuck?
Again, as an attack on our social sciences, Florida most certainly does need anthropologists. Anthropologists are in every field. They do vital social services. Okay, what do? They ask questions.
What?
It is important.
Not if you're trying to control the people.
They're responsible for interpreting data on social groups and determining how best we can meet that. You need an anthropological or social science background to understand where groups are coming from and how services can be tailored to them. It's kind of an attack on the social sciences. I think it's part of a larger attack on social programs in general. Sure, we don't need those people to interpret the data for us because we don't need programs for those people. That's kind of how it is.
Woo!
Okay, since you mentioned philosophy, I will talk a little bit about philosophy. So philosophy is all about identifying all of your assumptions and then questioning the soundness and the reasonability of those assumptions. So as philosophers, one thing we can do is identify these social assumptions that have formed our society and that are making our leaders make the decisions that they're making. So, leaders are assuming that people are being lazy and assuming that people don't have the right to an education. They're assuming that people don't have a right to clean air, clean water. If they're not assuming this, then they're certainly acting like we don't have these rights, because pollution continues, education is continually cut. What can philosophers do? Well, we can state these arguments and argue against them, but we can also make it part of our education system to teach people how to reason. Philosophy is not incorporated into our educational system, so people don't even know how to reason. They don't know how to fight for themselves. If we teach logic, critical thinking, ethics, we are completely missing ethics from our social discourse. We don't have ethics in our middle schools, high schools. We have sciences and math, which are fantastic and necessary, but we are missing a critical part of what it means to be a human being, which is to reason, and to reason the right way, and to think in terms of ethical principles.
I think it's pretty simple why the whole idea of teaching students how to reason, how to think critically is being taken away. Because simply put, you don't need much reason to flip a burger. You don't need much reason to basically take out student loans. You don't need much reason to perhaps do anything that the 1% wants you to do. You know, they want to treat you like you are a basic servant. You don't need reason to do what the 1% tells you to do. Take this, do that, fetch. You know, simply put.
Buy.
But a
Don't
person
forget
who
buy.
buy product. Here's product.
With a credit
bright
card.
lights, has lights, it's blue.
It
Look
will
at it.
complete your
Pretty. I want
self-actualization.
that. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why reason and critical analysis is not being taught in our schools. That's why Rick Scott, Rick Perry, whatever the Ricks, they want to take it out of our schools because they believe that reason is not good for the toiling masses. Reason isn't good for the 99%. Because if you can reason that, hey, perhaps shit is fucked up right now. And perhaps we should fight against it. But if you can't reason against it, you're going to be like, well, whatever. I can't reason, so why am I thinking? You know? It's total crap, you know? And we need to reason. Like, all of us here need to think critically about what's happening right now. And if you have a different, like answer to it, if you have your own opinion to it, if you think what I'm saying is total bullshit, get on this soap rock and reason with me and tell me why it's bullshit.
I don't know if taking ethics or reason or philosophy out of our education system is part of a broader conspiracy to dumb us down. I personally don't think it is, but I think it is part of a profit maximization scheme that is equally evil, that has its fingers in everything. If these things aren't going to make you money, we don't need them so much. So yeah, I don't think it's part of a conspiracy to keep us dumb and uncritical. I just think it's part of the idea that if it's not going to make you money, you don't need it.
I'm a little afraid of trying to get on this rock. I wanted to tell you guys my story. I worked my ass off to get here. I got straight A's in high school just so I could go to college. I'm first generation college. My parents didn't go to college. My dad didn't even make it through high school. Either of my brothers made it through high school. I spent every day working trying to get here, and I got here on a scholarship for bright futures, which was cut. And I got here on a scholarship from the school, which wasn't raised when tuition was raised. And I had to take out student loans. I'm not sure if I'll get to stay here because my parents can't afford to send me here. I have 3 majors that I fit into while I'm here, trying to do the most productive thing. None of them are what Rick Scott considers important. But that obviously doesn't make me a productive citizen. Because who needs teachers? They don't do anything. Or who needs people who go and fight law enforcement trying to keep us safe? They're not important either. So, that's what I was going to say.
They are important.
Hi. I thought it would just be important to mention that while it may seem like the
there's not a bunch wrong if you're not watching the TV or not realizing what's going on Wall Street, because it's hard to feel like, okay, there's something really wrong going on when I can still wake up every morning and go to Starbucks and buy a $4 coffee because, I mean, I have Bright Futures and I have some Pell Grants and I have some other scholarships that are paying for my meal plans and paying for me to go here. But if we don't realize that those are slowly being taken away from us, then we're going to be completely blindsided by the fact that we're left completely on our own when it comes to like getting an education, which I feel is a right as being a citizen. I mean, I was born and semi-raised in Denmark. They have a social democracy. Education and healthcare are rights as a citizen. Sure, they pay crazy taxes, but everyone shares what is put in and given. And I don't understand why my education isn't something that should come first in a place where the people who are making so much more money than I could ever dream of wanting to make are sitting by and not doing anything about it. And we have to be the people that do that because no one else will do it for us. And we need to be informed. You need to go up and look those numbers up. If you don't, I mean, we're not going to sit here and spew out statistics because at the end of the day, you might not believe them. It's up to you to figure out that you're the ones being fucked. It's your Bright Futures that's going down when they're raising the SAT scores needed for Bright Futures is going up by like 200 points, as is the amount of community service necessary. And while those numbers are going up, so the amount of people that are being offered Bright Futures is going slowly down, the amount of money that they're offering for that, like for the kind of student that you are, is slowly going down. Before you know it, Bright Futures will be completely gone. I think 98% of the students that showed up freshman year this year were on Bright Futures. Now, I don't know about the rest of the 98% of the students who came here on Bright Futures, but I can't go here if that gets cut, and it's ridiculous.
I just want to caution everyone because there's been some new developments in politics lately. Have you seen the fact that some banks are canceling some of the fees that they're charging? That's not a victory. That is a concession. There are a lot of points in history where people have made small concessions as a release valve for all this frustration. If you notice, England never got quite all the way to their revolution. They still have a monarchy, and that's because they had a lot of concessions. They said, Obama says he's going to help us out with our student loans. We're not going to have to pay them for a certain amount of time. That doesn't change the fact that we had to take out thousands and thousands of dollars in student loans in the first place. So these are not structural changes. These are small concessions that are meant to placate you, make you feel like you've done what you needed to do. Now go home and keep watching TV.
Woo! I think precisely on that point. I mean, if you, like Maria was saying, if you wake up and the first thing that you can do when you get out of bed is something that tastes good and that hides the fact that there are disgusting, bitter, awful social problems all around you and all around every one of us, then there's something very problematic with that. I mean, the United States spends a tremendous amount of money subsidizing what ultimately becomes luxury foods, things that taste good, things that comfort us. What is completely accessible to everyone? McDonald's, terrible food and terrible entertainment, and they both soothe us and they both lull us to sleep at night, and that absolutely keeps us placated. It keeps us, in a sense, but we feel biologically comforted, so that we're not intellectually alarmed. And I think that is completely crucial to understand, because everything that we're doing out here is a matter of awareness. The fact that the social sciences are being cut is perfect. Not that there need be a conspiracy. It just happens to be incredibly perfect, because that stops the production of people who know how to think critically about a social system, who know how to think about and analyze and address problems within a social system, who know how to effectively be critical in any way. And when it comes down to philosophy, ethics, I mean, this is all a matter of language. It's all a matter of the observational language that you're using to understand the system that you're in. And what fundamentally has been happening is that the language that we are being given as a culture is shrinking. We're being handed a simpler and simpler language to describe what's happening to us every single day. And every time our vocabulary shrinks, every time a subtlety gets collapsed into a generalization, we lose the ability to understand the world around us. We lose the ability to then act effectively and change the world around us. We lose the ability to understand why we're suffering. Why is that person next to me suffering? If we can't describe that, then we can't answer that question why. And pretty soon we won't even be able to ask that question why. And this is perfect for so many people, but none of it is perfect for us.
Hello. I wanted to talk for a second about objectification. Usually when we talk about objectification, we think of sexual objectification, right? But the actual word objectification, to objectify something, to render something object, is to take something that is dynamic, something that is fluid, something that is powerful, perhaps even revolutionary, and to fit it into a little box that's manageable, able to be disempowered. So I just was sitting over there thinking about Martin Luther King Jr. And when I was thinking about Martin Luther King Jr., I thought, what is the discourse surrounding that revolutionary power that was embodied in his personality? Once a year, we get together and we say, hey, civil rights movement. When did it end? I don't know, sometime in the past, right? But yay, equal rights, everybody can vote. Right? But as a case in point, Martin Luther King, when he turned his attention to the war in Vietnam and the structural powers that benefited from that, and the destruction that it was causing, not only in Vietnam, but across the world, he was killed. Right? So what lessons do we have to learn from a history that is objectified? The lessons we have to learn is that it is still alive. It is still running through the veins of all of us that can hear the stories and that can see through the bullshit objectification of history that occurs in contemporary discourse. Barack Obama just said recently that Martin Luther King would not be at the Occupy movement.
What?
Yeah. He said, no, they don't know what they're doing. Martin Luther King would be sitting with me here in the threshold of power. And Cornel West, who is a public intellectual and a decent man, said this is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And so he went to the steps of the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. with the Occupy movement, and he was arrested. His message, you cannot domesticate the revolutionary potential in the history that we inherit as human beings, as persons in the world. So let's take up that history and refuse objectification and see what's up.
I'm down.
I'm not actually a student here. I'm a staff person. And I wanted to come up because I wanted to address something very specific of what you were saying about student loans and some other things. I'm not very loud, and you're going to have to forgive me for stumbling over my points here, but I wanted to let you know that it's not always about how much you owe or whether or not you knew what you were getting into it when you decided to make a decision. I actually graduated from university without any student debt, and it's not about how well you are doing as a person as to whether or not your society is healthy. I am doing well. I am betting that perhaps at your age I was doing better, and I want to let you know that you're making a lot of assumptions about how your life is going to go. You're assuming that you're going to be able to work. You're assuming that you're going to be healthy and that you're going to be able to afford the health care that you're given. You're assuming that if you are able to work, that your employer is going to provide to you affordable benefits that cover the problems that you're potentially going to run into. I don't know our age differences, but I'm betting that in between our ages, I have about 24 kidney stones, a couple of hospitalizations, 4 surgeries, and 2 pairs of hearing aids. That's a lot to swallow, but I'm still doing well. But again, it's not about how well I am doing in relation to other people who are suffering under debt and sickness and all of the other problems that society has really caused the majority of the people to have to be encumbered with. What's really happening is that we've developed a culture where the individuals who power that culture are being fed into a machine that they didn't choose to be a part of to fuel the desires of the people who manipulate all of the greater powers that run this country. Your representatives are not representing you as much as they're representing the interests that are paying for their offices, that are funding their election campaigns. And what we are trying to do is address some of these more base problems with the society. And you may think I may be able to do better, I can just work harder or be smarter. Well, then who? Smarter than who? Work harder than who? The next guy? Well, what's going to happen to him? Society needs to change and needs to take into account that not everyone is going to be a genius. Not everyone is going to be able to afford to pay off their loans. Not everyone is going to be able to afford their cancer treatments. And we have to start having some compassion, and we should be able to afford to do that as one of the richest countries in the world.
I really don't want to get up on the rock. Yeah, it's kind of scary, I'm sure. I just have a question. I mean, I'm 18 years old, like, just new to this. Like, what can I do politically to actually change anything? Because, like, I hear this and it pisses me off. I'm like, I want to make changes, but what the hell can I do?
Vote.
Vote what? Like, what's the lesser of two evils?
Let's hear it.
I'm not sure about voting. I think everybody should vote and everybody should make their voices heard in a public forum. However, when it comes down to the question of how can we, as people, affect any kind of political change in a society that seems so much larger than ourselves, with so many more people than just ourselves, and the answer, I think, lies in a problem. There is a problem in our political system. Our political system nominally gives us a voice. It tells us that we can have an impact on our political situation, and yet we don't have any voice in the officials that are put up for election. Who decides that? Party politics decides that. The corporately owned party politics decides that. And the biggest problem in the political venue is also that we don't have a good source of information about things that are going on around us on the daily. News sources like CNN, like Fox, you can go down the list, are all politically bankrupt. They're all bought and sold. They are all corporations that care more about the bottom line and their own profit than they do about truth. So where can we educate ourselves? Where can we become more knowledgeable about things that seriously impact us, about fundamental issues? Where can we find the seed that can sprout into change? I think it's in occupying public space. I think it's in reclaiming our First Amendment right to assemble and to speak and to be made heard so that the government can be representative of the people, for the people, by the people.
I just want to say really quick to your question, yes. Secondly, the suggestion vote is right, except that whole idea has been alienated. So yeah, every once in a while you get a chance to go write some person's name who you don't understand and put it in a box, and you give power to someone who might not deserve it. And that's interesting, and it's cute, and it could be powerful. But at the moment, I think the realization is that it's not. And it's not even cute anymore, it's ugly. Gosh, it's ugly. But that is not the only voting that you do. If you have a dollar bill in your pocket, that's a vote. Every cash register around you is a ballot box. Everything that we do all day long secures the infrastructure that creates our world. So, I mean, you could abstain, you can go to a ballot, you can go to an election, you can choose the lesser of two evils, And at some point, that's important. But in some sense, it's kind of just a show. Because the real voting is going on every single day with these votes coming out of your pockets and going into ballot boxes everywhere. Understand, what are the problems in our society? What's really causing pollution? Is it a politician that you can vote out of office? No. They are absolute industrial processes that, are we keeping them in power by, for instance, buying certain products? If the answer is yes, then how can you go about not buying those products? Because by buying those products, you're voting them in power. You're keeping them in power, all of us. What's alienating our rights? What's alienating someone else's rights in a third world? If I buy a Coca-Cola, am I aware that that's paying for a paramilitary group to go kill unionizing workers? Or that it's paying for people to go steal water, for people who have lived on land for thousands of years? The answer is yes. Maybe that's the case. You have to find out for yourself. Where are my dollars going, and should they be going there? Because that's how you vote all day long, every day. And that's where the real political process is happening. It's not this show that shows up on network television. It's every single day. The current of money is the current of power. And we ultimately control that. But we only understand that by our awareness. And so that's the most fundamentally transformative thing that any of us can do, is understand where our money's going. And change that. And educate people around you. To your point, what can you do? You go on Facebook, search Occupy Tallahassee.
That was obvious.
On Saturday, 12 o'clock, you can come to the old Capitol or participate in our General Assembly, make your voice heard. And what else you can do? Everybody you talk to, you tell them about Occupy Tallahassee. You organize people just like you. You organize people, students, your parents, you tell them, and they're like, please be quiet. You say, Mom, Dad, listen to me. This is real. Occupy movement is real. That's what you can do.
I'm trying to get my boyfriend to come out. So.
Get him whatever. Like, just like, make sure he comes out, And like, basically, we have to realize that our biggest weapon, like Ralph was saying, was with our dollar, as well as, like, when it's time to vote, that is the least time we're powerful, in my opinion. Because we have, throughout the year, that time to go to our, like, legislators that are elected, get on their asses and tell them to represent the people's interests. And every time we talk to somebody and interact with anybody, we tell them, come with me so we can go to our legislator's office and hop on his ass, hop on her ass, whatever, and tell them to represent our interests. And that's what you can do. That's what you can do to be a part of something. Be a part of Occupy Tallahassee, organize people just like you, and start a movement. I'd also like to mention there's protests from 4 to 7 every day at the Capitol. Come show your support. Your voice will be heard.
I thought I'd jump up here since the question was posed, I guess, a little bit. I guess the question that's faced, people who wanted to change things for all of history, what is to be done. And we can look at these things and we can see, what has been done throughout history. And we can kind of get an idea of what's worked and what hasn't, right? So we start with voting. I think we're all pretty much to, some of the problems with voting. It's a question of who you're voting for, how you vote for them, all these kind of complex intertwined issues that, mess up voting between gerrymandering and corporate interests and where the money comes from, all that kind of fun stuff. Then we go over to voting with your dollars, right? Which is pretty good. You can make a lot of change that way, boycotting things, pushing things forward. But you also get into another problem. More dollars, more votes, right? If every cash register is a ballot box and you have more dollars, aren't you more powerful in our democracy? So there's some problems there. It's better than some things. Not as good as it can be. But let's look at history real quick and see what has always changed history. I'll tell you what's always changed history. The masses of the people in the streets organizing for change. Anytime it's ever looked like voting with your dollars has changed it, no. It's actually the masses of the people behind that. Anytime an elected official has gone forward and said, I'm going to make this big change, make no mistake, it has been the people in the streets pushing them forward every single day. All of our rights as students, all of workers' rights, the weekend, none of that came out of some benevolent leader or just the natural progression of history. That came from people fighting and dying in the streets. That came from people pushing every day for change. And that's what it's going to take. Look around you. Find where you're, the power systems that affect your life right now. Who's making decisions? What systems are making decisions for you? Look around you and see other people who are in the same position. Grab them up and organize. There's already coalitions all across campus, all across the state, all across the country, and all across the world. Coalitions for immigrant justice, coalitions for student justice, economic justice, social justice. These all already exist. They need you. And that's the only thing that's ever changed history. You can go back and, look at the civil rights movement, right? Whatever the constitutional amendment that they passed, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't people fighting and dying in the streets before that. So, social struggle, organizing with people, talking to people face to face like this, it is the current that has always carried social change. And we're part of another kind of upswing in this current. So, let's ride it. Let's make it a good one.
I would like to say just how powerful this whole movement is, just to remind everyone that it's easy to say, I can go to Occupy Tallahassee where I'm maybe going to be surrounded by 100 or so people, and that's really great because we need that. But I think it's also really important to see that what's happened in Occupy Oakland, people in Egypt walked out of their jobs, walked out of their homes, and stood up for people in California. Absolutely phenomenal that everyone is finally realizing this and standing together, and I think that's a beautiful thing, and we need to embrace that and realize that. And I also just wanted to point out what you said, because I stand right there with you. I'm a freshman here. I look at myself and say, what can I possibly do? And it's hard because I can walk out of my dorm room and say, I really need to eat. I should probably go grab something from Einstein's, or I want a Starbucks. But you have to kind of put yourself in that mindset. What is the best thing that I should do? Are there local options? We need local options in this university. Why are we having a Starbucks here when we can't have students running their own coffee shop and bringing the profits back into the school instead of going to the big corporations? I mean, there is money. Why isn't it here? Why isn't it in the places where it needs to be? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to say that we're all here protesting. We're all saying, yes, getting in the masses, getting in the streets. This is really, really awesome. And I obviously completely 100% agree. But I have friends who can't be here because they're not technically American citizens. And if they get caught protesting, they will be deported. So we need to be extra loud for those people who want to show their solidarity but can't, because if they do, then they'll get deported. So I just wanted to show some solidarity to my friends who might get deported.
Wait, we're not done answering your question yet. Well, just to kind of speak to what all of this is in a large sense. What is occupation? Why are people gathering? Aside from being awesome, clearly. What is happening? There's a bunch of people gathering, but they're not running someone for president, or they're not writing a book together. What's really happening? Why these people are coming together and they're doing something, but it's not clear what it is. And people are complaining. And I think that leads to the objectification point earlier. People are complaining that it's not simple. Because if it were simple, then they could say, that's simple and trivial, and they could throw it away. They're struggling right now. They're frustrated because they can't simply define this movement. Because if they could simply define it, then they could simply dismiss it. And I think that's powerful. But what's really happening here is complex. What's really happening here is the emergence of a culture. It's a new culture. It's a culture of representation. It's a culture of insistence. It's a culture of resistance. And that's really important. Because what's been happening to all of us continuously, what's been happening to our country, what's been happening to every country, is that all of the elements of our culture that have been empowering to us have slowly been robbed from all of us. And so this occupation as a movement is the emergence of a necessary culture. So what's happening? Well, people are gathering and they're talking to each other and they're trying to understand each other and they're hashing it out. And sometimes it's frustrating. But that creates, conflict leads to resolution. Conflict leads to the emergence of something new. If you have someone that puts forward a thesis and someone puts forward an antithesis, that's the only time that synthesis can happen. And this is very straightforward, and people pretend like it's not obvious that it's the case. But that's the process that we're undergoing. And this entire occupation movement is the emergence of a new culture that will allow for the emergence of a new language for us to finally understand and be able to describe what's happening to all of us. So, if people say that it's not clear what's happening, then that's important. Because what's happening, there's not yet language to describe. And that's why we're all coming out. And that's why all of our voices are important. Because we're all co-creating a language that needs to exist in order for any of us to continue on this planet.
Hello guys, how you doing today?
Good.
My name is Kayon Sterling and I'm a veteran, U.S. Army, and what I'd like to briefly talk about today is in 2008 I had a chance to deploy to the Middle East, and in what I thought was myself supporting our country, supporting our government, supporting what I thought was right. And I had the opportunity to see some things that weren't so just, things that weren't supported and backed by good reason that the system was ultimately doing. And I witnessed some for-profit things, some illegitimate things, and things that really disturbed me. And to that point, I swore a new commitment. That was to get my honorable discharge, come back to the university, get my education, and make a change. Start somewhere and make a change. There are things going on. There are real things going on. And we as citizens, we have to wake up to this. We have to, because there are some terrible things going on. And it's going to take education, it's going to take awareness, and it's going to just take each and every one of us to spread the word and spread the message and come together, unify, and spread this message. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say one more thing about objectification in history. Sorry to belabor it. But when you ask somebody, or if you ask somebody, when did the women's lib movement end? Right? When was liberation for women no longer an issue in public discourse? They might say something, the 70s, something like that. Okay? And what's interesting about the women's liberation movement is that surely certain things were secured for women in the public sphere. For example, in 1950, I don't think you would have seen many female doctors or female lawyers or female judges, that type of thing. So structurally, more people have been able to occupy places formerly held exclusively for others. But the question then, is liberation simply accessing spheres previously unavailable to you? Okay? And I would say that not. I would say that not. Women who have historically been barred access to educational institutions, public and civic institutions, were allowed to gain access to those institutions if, and only if, their contributions to those systems remained muted, conformist, and not radical. Okay? I think we need to get out of an ideology of success where we think that we can liberate ourselves by simply getting on the other side of the money divide or the other side of the power divide. Okay? People think, I can liberate myself from poverty by becoming a millionaire. No, bullshit. You can't. You can't, because liberation of each and every one of us is tied, is tethered, is chained to all those we would leave behind in that false liberation. Thank you.
Yeah!
I mean, simply put, like, a movement never ends. Like, life never ends. Like, a movement is a constant synergy of energy that keeps building. It may get suppressed. Like women's rights, civil rights. You say that you've had this like movement for civil rights, like giving everybody equality, giving everyone the ability, the opportunity to achieve the American dream, to achieve successful ends. That movement is always happening. That struggle is always happening. And right now, that movement has been set back. The Patriot Act, you have our Fourth Amendment rights being violated by the U.S. government, basically to help out, to basically have this culture of security that damages us all, that makes us afraid to meet people who we don't even know, makes us afraid to reach out to people who aren't like us, who talk differently than us. What they're doing is fundamentally like against you. They're affecting your humanity. They're making you afraid to basically reach out to people who normally you would want to be a part of, to learn their culture. And through wars, through all these conflicts, we're being systematically indoctrinated into a constant state of fear. And we have to reject that state of fear, because through that state of fear, they're making money off of us. It all goes back to the dollar. It's all about profit, and they're profiting off of us. The hundreds of millions of dollars that's spent on war profiteering to fight an invisible mission, to fight for our freedoms, that's money that could go to help educate people here. That's money that can go to help rebuild our infrastructure. That's money that can go to basically make sure that we don't have millions in poverty in America like we do now. But we are the richest nation in the world, apparently. But we have millions in poverty, and we have a healthcare system that can't even help my grandmother, who has congestive heart failure, get decent medicine. But we're the richest country in the world, so we should shut up. However, the people should not shut up. The people should keep fighting, and we should keep building the civil rights movement. This movement is going to keep building. It's going to keep growing. And we have to make sure that it keeps growing, that it keeps growing, and that it keeps growing and never dies.
The rock is so empty. Why is this rock so empty? I mean, why is this rock empty?
I'm not the kind of person.
Not true.
You can put up enchantment.
Not true. I just want to say, we know better than that.
Yeah.
You are the kind of person, but it's okay. This rock's going to be here for a very long time. We're all going to get very familiar with this rock. It's cool. We'll be here. To Michael's point, so much money is being made for the sake of defending our freedoms. But what that's actually doing, and it's an old note, but those efforts are actually stripping us of our actual freedoms. That money could be being used for education, like Mike said. That's real freedom. It could be being used to create actual social structure that allows people to create purpose and fulfill that purpose in their lives. That's real freedom. All right? But what they're fighting for is not us. All right? What's being secured is not benefiting us in any way. And I think that the mass disconnect is the distinction between money and actual wealth. Because you might have a boatload of money, but if there is no meaningful social structure around you, it's just paper. It's just paper. And there is no real sense of value in a piece of paper. And so the idea that somehow it's worth killing thousands of your citizens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people just as legitimate around the rest of the world to secure some financial gain because somehow that's valuable, that's fundamentally false. And there's a fundamentally conceptual disconnect between the idea of some piece of paper that looks really pretty, but actual value. And that value requires social infrastructure to make sense, to actually be real. And that social infrastructure requires an actual functioning environment to sustain those things that build that infrastructure. So that paper means nothing if what it's doing is undermining the actual system that makes it valuable.
What does it say about our country that one of the only dependable ways to achieve health care and achieve a college education is to enlist in the military? To enlist in the military and in many cases go to war, a war that you may not agree with or understand, and a war that generates the debt that causes all of our problems. The debt that is why we are cutting education and social programs. It doesn't make sense. It's this huge cycle of killing and misunderstanding and debt.
I just wanted everybody to go home and, like, I was talking about stats before, go home and look up how many years we can fund Social Security with 1 year's budget for defense. How many years we can, like, support all these social programs that we see around us, those that support, all these welfare programs that are apparently destroying our country. Go see how many years. We're talking, like, dozens of years that you can do this with a single year of the defense budget. So I just want to go ahead and encourage everybody to, again, go home and do your research and see how many years you can fund all of the rest of the budget of the United States on defense spending.
Rock, what are you doing there?
You should have picked a smaller rock.
Did you want to?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Go for it.
What's up, guys? I want to tell you a story kind of going on, like that idea of like the military is crap and craziness. I got a friend, he came from a poor area from where I lived, and he had a really like rough family life and stuff, and he didn't really have any way to get out of it except to join the military. So he joined the Marines, and he went through training and all that stuff, and he went over, he got shipped out to Afghanistan, and he just got back in May. He almost lost his life. They were doing a patrol or something on the way back. His commanding officer wanted him to go a different way, so they went a different way. He stood directly on an IED, blew off both his legs, cut his body up like crazy. They didn't think he was going to make it for a while. He was out for probably 2 months. And someone, I believe you were talking about how, what does it say about our country that military. Well, he's got tons of money now. He's well provided for. But first, he's lost his legs. He just got married. I was his best man, and I had to help him get ready for all that. And it was just, I don't know if you guys know anybody without legs, but it's crazy the difficulty that you face every day just without that. And on top of that, he can't sleep at night. He wakes up freaking out. He has PTSD really, really bad. He probably gets 2 hours of sleep a night if he's lucky. And money can't buy happiness. The government throws money at him to kind of make up for the fact, oh, you died for your country, hurrah, whatever. But that money is really doing no good, and he's just ended up being bitter and just, miserable all the time. And this movement has interested me ever since it started up. I'm a history major, and so it definitely, I was like, oh, wow, what's going to happen? But it definitely speaks to me in that respect that there's got to be, something has to change. There's got to be something that we can't have money as our God because it's failing us over and over again. It's ruining people's lives. And as you guys talk about, that girl earlier asked, what can we do? I mean, it's hard because our system is so messed up. Our system is it caters to the rich. So what are how can we force pressure on people to listen to us and do things? Even if we go out, a lot of times if you look at the news, it shows people like Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Tallahassee as these radical people, or these, I think Herman Cain talked about it, that these people need to go get a job or something like that. So how do you get them to listen to us if we're just looked as fringe and as people who have lost their mind or are lazy? So
Yeah. Was it Gandhi who said, I forgot, like, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win?
Yeah.
So right now, they tried to ignore us. We got no media coverage. Occupy Wall Street got zero media coverage. Now we get all the media coverage, Occupy movement, and they just say like, oh, they're a bunch of hooligans. They're like doing all this bad stuff. They hate America, even though there's veterans, U.S. veterans in Occupy, in it. People who have fought for this country in Occupy because they understand it. So they laughed at us first, right? Now they're fighting us. Oakland police repression, Denver shooting rubber bullets at peaceful protesters who have no guns, who aren't armed. These aren't like Tea Party protesters who come to rallies with shotguns, to exercise their Second Amendment rights. These are peaceful protesters who have no weapons, who barely don't even like knives because it looks violent. Having a knife is violent, right? But that's going to lead to us winning. You know why? Because there's more of us than this is them. And we're united, and we're not going to take it anymore. And we're mad as hell, like the family. So we're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. So we should stop taking it, get mad as hell, and fight back. Woo!
Okay, so there's a lot of talk about what the hell can I do. Obviously, we're feeling depowered. So what do we do to feel empowered? Get together. You need confidence. You need other people to tell you we can fucking do this. We can change the world. Woo! That's it. Woo! And whoa, is somebody use a phone?
I
Yeah,
think it's recording.
Is this yours? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point, well, one of the points, one of the big reasons why we're out here today, specifically, one of the reasons why some of us walked out of our classes and out of our workplaces today at 3 o'clock was because, well, it's a long story. It's a long story. But there was someone who went out and fought for this country and thought what they were doing was correct. And they came back and understood that wasn't the fight. And that somehow the fight is here. The fight is domestic. The fight's on the streets. And they went out to fight that fight. And the government that they fought for, the government that they risked their lives for, shot them in the head with a tear gas canister and put them in the hospital. Nearly killed them. What's our name? Scott Olsen. Scott Olsen is just one remarkable example of the vast travesty that's being committed everywhere. Scott Olsen is not the only veteran fighting this new fight. Scott Olsen is not the only person who thought that somehow we need to mobilize, and they tried, and it didn't work, and it continues every day to not work in increasingly many countries. That fight somehow isn't securing freedom. That fight somehow isn't ensuring justice. And they're coming back to their streets, to their hometowns, and they're taking up a new fight. They're taking up a new pursuit of freedom that's being defined as it goes. And that's why we walked out of our classes today. That's why we walked out of our workplaces today. Was because they can't be alone in this. Because none of us are alone in this. And we can't pretend that somehow staying embedded in these institutions is going to keep us safe. Because it's not. Somehow, staying, you might have landed a cushy job, you might have gotten really lucky. But that's not everyone. And you might have gotten lucky, and that might have been for a window, but that's not every day. And the whole idea is we might be comfortable now. We might feel good now. We might have a good taste in our mouth right now. But that's not tomorrow. And there is a struggle on that we have to wake up to. But now it's here. We don't have to enlist in the military. We don't have to take up arms. We don't have to risk our lives. All we have to do is walk outside and say something completely obvious and natural every moment that we can. That's the new fight. That's the new exertion of freedom. What's that? What's this? Is it Operation Iraqi Freedom? Enduring Freedom? How does any of that make sense? That's all here. What does Iraq have to do with our freedom here? We have to walk out into the streets and assert our freedom. That's what our freedom is. That's what we should be fighting for daily. And that's what people are waking up to right now. Is enduring freedom is here. Ensuring freedom, asserting freedom is this operation, is this occupation. We don't have to go occupy some foreign land to be free. We have to occupy this place here where we live. That's freedom.
If you have anything to say, step up on the soap rock.
If you have anything to say, if you think everything what we're saying is crap, just hop on the soapbox. Let's have a rational discussion like we've had the past couple weeks. And you tell us your point of view, we tell you ours. Tonight at 8 p.m. at Lake Ella, we'll be having a solidarity vigil.
Sorry, mic check?
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Tonight at 8 o'clock.
Tonight at 8 o'clock.
At 8 p.m.
At 8 p.m.
At Lake Ella.
At Lake Ella.
Occupy Tallahassee.
Occupy Tallahassee.
We'll be having
a
solidarity vigil.
A solidarity vigil.
For Scott Olsen.
For Scott Olsen.
And Occupy Oakland.
And Occupy Oakland.
And in solidarity.
And in solidarity.
With all victims.
With all victims.
Of police brutality.
Of police brutality.
Mic check off. As well, you can get involved today. Go to Occupy Tallahassee on Facebook. Find out on there how to get involved. OccupyTally.org. Saturday at 12 p.m. we'll be having the General Assembly at the Old Capitol.
You want to mic check that?
At 1. Saturday starting at 12. We'll be at the Old Capitol.
We'll be rallying at 12. Our general assembly's at
we'll start at 12. And a General Assembly at 1 p.m. on Saturday.
Let's mic check that.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Occupy Tallahassee.
Occupy Tallahassee.
Will be having General Assembly. 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Saturday. 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
We will be there.
We will be there.
Hundreds of Tallahassee citizens.
Hundreds of Tallahassee citizens.
We'll be there.
We'll be there.
At the Old Capitol.
At the Old Capitol.
That's good. And also, as well, be involved. November 5th is National Day of Action. These banks who have screwed us over, who have gotten trillions of dollars in bailout money, it is our time as a protest to them, take our money out of there, put it into a local credit union that doesn't profit off of us and use us like guinea pigs on the little wheel that keeps turning. It is our time. These banks have made concessions. They're backing off their debit fees. You know why? Because they know they're full of shit. Simply put, they know they're exploiting us. They know they have screwed us for too long, and they are running scared. And you know, it's our time to tell them, hey, yeah, you're damn right you're scared. Because it's time for the people of America to stop being exploited by these giant banks and withdraw from them and put it to somewhere else that benefits the people of our communities. So that's November 5th. Please be involved with that. Please perform that action for Americans, for your country, and for the world in general. And send a message to the 1%.
What's November 5th, mic check?
November 5th, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
It's a National Day.
National Day
of Action.
Of Action.
Against the 1%.
Against the 1%.
And against the big banks.
Against the big banks.
Who profit.
Who profit.
Off the 99%.
Off the 99%.
Withdraw your money.
Withdraw your money.
From huge corporate banks.
From huge corporate banks.
Put your money.
Put your money.
Into local credit unions.
Into local credit unions.
Or local banks.
Or local banks.
That don't screw you over in debit fees.
That don't screw you over in debit fees.
November 5th.
November 5th.
November 5th.
November 5th.
November 5th.
November 5th.
thought about, you touched on it a little bit, some other guys about, getting lucky and who's going to look out for me then. I'm sorry. The other day, some folks were talking about it, looking out for each other and stuff like that. I want you to think about, just a little food for thought, the guy next to you in class who wants to cheat off your paper. We all have one. We all have a mooch. He wants to look at your notes because he doesn't want to come to class. Well, I might be a little older than most of the undergrads here. I can tell you that never stops. When you get to work, there's going to be a guy who doesn't want to work as hard, and you're going to have to make up for him. Otherwise, your business, who you work for, may struggle, and you may lose your job, or you may not get that raise or that bonus. So when we talk about looking out for each other, there's always manipulators, users, people who want more for less than what you're willing to give. So when we talk about our social programs and looking out for each other, realize that the person next to you may not be willing to give as much as you. And so when you're talking about, we may not always be lucky. A boss of mine, an old boss, he says, business is all about running scared. Believe every day that someone's going to outdo you, that you're going to lose a contract, because it's that fear, it's that desire that keeps pumping us forward, that makes us better than the other guy. So we need a little bit of fear. It may sound strange, but if we have no reason to be motivated, then we'll become complacent. And so to have a total social net that catches everything, it may lead us to be a little lazy, and a little lazier, and a little lazier. We need a little fear to keep us going, to make us better. And maybe that's why we're here at at a university getting an education. It's a motivator, because we don't want to be, work at McDonald's for the rest of our lives. Just something to think about.
I agree, mainly with fear. Fear is a great motivator, and you know what I fear? I fear being too much in debt to my ass to pay off my student loans. I fear my mom getting sick and not having good health care. I fear my mom not being able to pay off her adjustable rate mortgage that these corporate mega whatever sold her to. I fear all that. I fear for my country. I fear for my world. I fear for my families. I fear for people on the streets now who are in poverty. That's who I fear for. And that's why I'm on this rock. That's why I'm in Occupy. That's why I go to the Capitol. That's why we're going to occupy the Capitol. That's why Occupy exists, out of fear. And it's out of fear comes love. Because from that fear, we develop a love for our country. We develop a love for our world. We develop a love for the social system, which gives us meaning, which gives us validity. Because without the social system, without everybody listening to me, I'm not saying anything. If nobody hears me, then I never said anything. There's no such thing as an individual in this country. An individual in this country is nothing without the country that individual is in. And we have to realize that fear is a great motivating factor, and fear is a motivating factor for why we're here and why we're going to keep progressing, why they laugh at us because they fear us, and why we're going to win it's because they fear us and they will lose. And fear and love will be what brings America back to prominence and what brings this world back to prominence.
I just want to say I'm really glad you brought that up. What's your name? Kevin. I think that's a really important point. And I think actually this whole idea of moochers. We're surrounded by moochers. I mean, I feel you. I went all throughout high school, undergraduate, and maybe I was all right at school, and I helped my fair share of people. Now, there were people who actually legitimately needed help. There were people who came from homes where their parents weren't there to help them with their homework, where they didn't know how to study well. There were people who actually came from disadvantage, and they really needed help, and they really sought to learn and not just get a grade. Now, I also ran across a bunch of people that just wanted the answers, that just wanted it handed to them without having to work for it. They wanted more out than what they were willing to put in. You're absolutely right. And I think that you cautioning us against building a system where those people somehow benefit is very interesting. But I would suggest that's exactly where we are right now. All of the people that are exploiting us, do you think they're hard workers? Do you think that they're asking for a proportionate amount of what they put in? What I'm suggesting is that, in fact, there are some really clever people that can still be fundamentally lazy moochers. These people have found a shortcut to power, and they have found a way to embed themselves in these power systems. And these moochers are the people who expect us to pay for their cavalries of yachts, and yet don't want to pay in to helping out the people that they're profiting off of. These moochers are the people who want all of our social structure to be devoted to their profit, and yet they don't want to help pay for us to be healthy, even though our lives are what produce their revenue. These moochers are the people who expect power without merit. These moochers are the people who build systems to harness good by doing bad. So I absolutely understand. Now, I mean, as far as the people who I think you were more speaking towards, people who are unfortunate or in unfortunate situations and aren't in positions of power, people who are just generally mooching, I would suggest that the effect that they have on their world is little to nothing compared to the effect that these incredibly successful moochers have been having. So as far as who's creating the narrative, who's creating this narrative of, well, wait, if we invest in social structure, there's going to be a bunch of lazy people who are going to be profiting off of those investments. Where's that voice coming from? I don't think it's coming necessarily from a place of clarity. I think quite often clear people can take in this voice and inherit this voice. But I think where that voice is truly coming from is someone who can profit off of that perspective. The people who are inducing this perspective are kept in power and who keep they're essentially scraping up those resources that would otherwise be invested in social systems. Now, I grew up in rural Alabama. I grew up surrounded by poverty. And I understand that a lot of the people that I went to school with, they had no choice but to join the military. They had no choice because they systemically could not be enriched. The social structure around them was not equipped. It was not adequate enough to enable them, to empower them. And so I'm one of the few people that graduated from my high school that managed to go to college. Because we were all surrounded in poverty. And even when I went to college, I didn't even understand what college was. That's how systematically reduced our awareness was. But if the social system had been different there, if there had been infrastructure, if there had been access to perspective, like enriched perspective, that's real empowerment. And I know a lot of people who ended up lazy because they didn't have access to empowerment. And what good does motivation do if you're motivated to do what? There has to be some kind of conduit for human motivation. There has to be something there to grab onto. I mean, you talk about fear is what has to drive us forward. I understand, but I feel like there's a linguistic refinement that can be made. Because I think that there's a subtlety involved when you talk about fear and love. And I think there's a fundamental consolidation, the notion of passion. I think that's really fundamental. Now, you can be overly simplistic and say you want to do good in the world because you should be afraid of someone else outdoing you. I mean, I definitely understand that. And that makes a lot of good happen, that perspective. But I feel like that perspective could be improved upon. All of the things that I try to do in the world, I could say, yeah, I'm afraid of it not getting done. I'm afraid of somebody coming and outdoing me. But actually, that limits me. Because fear is a really unfortunate circumstance to be in. Now, passion, on the other hand, is general. Passion doesn't require threat. Passion is internal. And that's really what should be driving us all forward. And passion and fear, they have subtle differences. And so, definitely, I think that there's a refinement in perspective. And that refinement could make a huge difference because fear is not sustainable. Fear is context dependent. But passion is fundamental to every living thing on this earth. Passion is love. Why can't we be propelled forward by love? Why does it have to be fear? Actually, there's a more general idea. Passion is both of those things depending on the context. It's a more general agent of propulsion. It's a more genuine agent of propulsion. It's a more sustainable agent of propulsion. And so, I think that passion can push us forward where we need to be. And I think that all of the people that might be exploiting us, they're out there. But let's take a look at where the real massive exploitation is happening. Who are those moochers? Maybe we should deal with them first. And maybe if we invested in infrastructure, maybe we could build a system where there were just people that had more conduits for their passion in the first place and wouldn't have to cheat off of your test.
Yeah, I'm still afraid to get on the rock. So I'm going to stand down here. But on the subject of motivators, I think a good motivator, maybe besides fear, is faith and hope. Because I'm out here because I believe that we can make a difference. And because I have faith in the 99% that they are willing to stand up for it, or that they will come to be willing to stand up for their rights when they understand what is happening. And I have faith that if we create an infrastructure that is sustainable for us, that there won't be as many moochers because we've eliminated them. That's what I believe. So I think fear can paralyze us. Can if I'm too afraid of the system, I'm not going to do anything to change it because I'm afraid to do it. But if I have faith in it, if I believe that people are willing and that they are fighting out there for it, then I can join in because I believe that too.
So this rock is for everybody. This rock is for anybody. What caught your eye? What caught your ear? Why did you stop here? Why aren't you on your way to class? What are you doing here?
Hey, you said that you want new infrastructure. You want
Rock. What's up, Rock?
I'm not going to speak. I want to ask the question.
Sounds like you're speaking. What's up?
What are your goals?
What are my goals?
Well, what is the goals that you're trying to join this Occupy movement to achieve some certain goals? What are the goals you're trying to achieve?
So you're asking about the goals of the Occupy movement?
Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, I cannot speak for the Occupy movement. No one here can speak for the Occupy movement. That voice is in the works. That voice is an evolutionary process. When that organism sufficiently wakes up, that's when there might be a way to answer your question. But I think that there's something that you can still be given.
What are your goals, personally?
Personally, what are my goals? I look around and I see everybody here. And I, upon first thought, fundamentally identify with everyone here as mired deep in humanity. And at second thought now, that's wonderful, that's amazing, because I know how powerful humanity can be. And then immediately after that, I realize, fuck, that's hard. Humanity is hard. And when I look in everyone's face, I try to recognize that. I try to see everyone, and I see them, oh, like, look at that person. They've got a cool shirt on. They're pretty. But the moment that passes, I realize that person has led an incredibly complex life. They have an incredibly complex history. They're struggling all the way up until today. They're probably struggling right now. And so when I look around, I see people that I find myself inextricably linked with. Now, what are my goals? Well, now that question kind of generalizes to what are our goals? I mean, I have goals as a human, but does it make sense for me to address my goals in a vacuum? I don't feel like it does. And so I can think about what I want as a person. I can think about what would make me feel good. But that's not a complete thought, because I could pursue all kinds of biological imperatives, and that might feel good. But what effect does that have on the world around me? What my goals are?
That wasn't my question.
Yeah, you were asking about my goals.
That wasn't what I meant. And that wasn't what I meant.
No, I mean, I'm in the middle of it. It's a long answer. I'm sorry. If you wanted a short answer, you could have asked one.
You said that back in Alabama there were systemic problems that caused the people to not have determination.
Yeah.
What kind of solutions do you propose for those problems that you blame on the government?
I haven't blamed anything on the government, but I would say that they are failing us. So, really quick answer to your question.
You said there's systemic problems.
Really quick answer to your question. Education for everybody.
We already have that.
Do we? Why is it that none of the people that I graduated high school with were empowered enough or were enabled enough to go forward and succeed? Were they educated? Well, they might have passed some tests, but what does education mean? What does education mean? Education is being empowered to function within the society around you. And that's what's failing. I see a lot of people here, even, that they're following trajectories, they'll get out. And they might have a degree. But what effect does it have? You can graduate high school, you can graduate college, you can get a PhD. But does it mean anything? Does it help the world? Does it help you as a person? It may not.
You just said it does. You said education for everyone is a solution to our problems.
And then I asked, what is education? Because it doesn't mean, going through high school isn't education. Going through college is not education. That doesn't empower you. That doesn't make you capable.
So what kind of education are you pushing for then?
What kind of education am I pushing for? Okay, fine. Well, first of all, I'm pushing for fundamental education. The fact that you can learn how to answer a math problem is trivial. The fact that you can write a paper that someone writes few enough red marks on to let you through a class is trivial. What I want people to know is what's going on around them. That's education. First of all, second of all, third of all, and final necessity to function in the world around you is to understand the world around you. That's all that you need, okay? But the whole point is that systemically, what's supposed to be educational institutions are being stripped of the ability to empower people from that. I mean, instead, people are making money off of the privatization of education. People are making money on student debt.
I just want to ask, how do you know that this is a problem of people not empowering versus people not wanting to be empowered? Because I feel like the problem with this generation, a lot of it is like lack of motivation and taking on things yourself. So how do you know that it's just that the kids aren't openly seeking to be motivated?
Well, because they don't understand the world around them. Because if I thought that all it took to have fun was to wake up on Saturday morning and eat some breakfast cereal and watch cartoons, like that means that I don't understand the world as it is.
What if that's like a problem of emotional intelligence because there are different levels?
I would hesitate fundamentally to suggest that there are inherent problems with humans. I would suggest furthermore that there are problems with the way that humans are being raised. I think that every human being is capable of understanding their situation. I mean, minus obvious caveats. And every human being understands that they're trying to make themselves happy somehow. Now, the idea is, what tools are they given to understand how they would even go about starting that? And where I grew up, people didn't understand that there was a way that you could do anything different in the world other than work at that corner store there and make money and spend that money on that fast food there and go get married and make children, and that was life. But that's not happiness. That's not the capacity to actually succeed or to make yourself happy or to make the world a better place. So I don't think that there's an inherent problem with this generation biologically. I don't think that they're necessarily inherently emotionally inhibited. They may very well be, but my suggestion is that's systemic. And so the idea of what are we teaching these people? What are they seeing? What are they being shown? When they turn on TV, what's the representation of the world that they're understanding? They're internalizing all of this. How does that make them human? Because humanity is an iterative process. I experience the world, I internalize the world, and that changes the way I now experience it. That feedback process is fundamental. And I've watched that feedback process fail so many people because the things that they had to interact with were fundamentally flawed or they were false. And so, I mean, everything that we're surrounded by either enables us or removes our ability to function. And so I don't think the problem is here. I don't think the problem is in any of us. I think the problem is being made manifest because what's out here is what we are able to pay money to. And I think that's fundamentally the problem, is that people are making money off of perspective. People are making money off of an ability. And that's reinforcing itself. Because, unfortunately, right now money is power. And so that's being embedded deeper and deeper in our society, and it's staying. So I don't think it's the problem of emotional intelligence as inherent in humans. And as far as education goes, I think it transcends schools.
You want more of a cultural revolution, a thought revolution, rather than a political movement.
That's definitely what I've been saying, is this is culture. This is the emergence of a new, necessary culture.
So what's the point of the protests? The protests have nothing to do with culture. It's,
what's culture?
I mean, what you're saying is that the way we think is flawed. That really, fundamentally, we all have.
Come on up on this. Come on, you've got more than a question.
I'm trying to ask you a question. It's just that you refuse to answer my question. I think that's pretty clear.
Give me your question and state it simply so that I can answer it like just really easily.
I'm just. I lost my train of thought there.
You were talking about what's the point of the protests?
Yeah, because now you're saying you're pushing more for a revolution in how humans think. Then what does that have to do with protests over there at the Capitol building?
So